All right, as you can see, we are down to just one car because the green car is off getting painted. So now it's time to do some engine work. I've got some new cams here from Skunk2 and all the associated parts for the head. Now, I've never done any of this type of work before, but I watched a couple videos, I took some notes, and we're just gonna figure it out. And that's how basically everything else has gone so far. Let's see. All these parts are from Skunk2. I went with their Tuner Stage 2 camshaft based on their recommendation. It also pairs up with their Alpha Series springs. So just remove the spark plugs, and the next step is to set the motor to top dead center. So I'm just gonna spin it by hand from the crank here until we get our timing marks where we want. Both of these guys to meet up in the middle here. See up here, up top, we're in time, and then down at the bottom, this mark here lines up with this arrow. And we're top dead center. So next I'm just gonna mark the chain at these 2 points so we know to line them up like this. Makes it easier to keep track later on. Next up I'm gonna remove this timing cover. This is where the tensioner is. Oopsie, that's not good. All right, so this one rounded a bit, so hopefully we can get this thing out. Okay. Okay, that didn't work at all. Okay. There you have it. So now that this is open, we can put a tack in here to lock the tensioner and then remove it. So now we got to remove these cam caps, and these go in a specific order, which I've noted down. This all comes from like the Honda service manual. I found it online, just copied it down. I'm just going to crack them all by hand, and then we'll take out the ratchet. All right, so now with all these bolts out, should be able to just pull all these free. I might get a little stuck. All right, this one. Now the cams are free, pretty much. So the tricky thing now is we want to keep tension on this chain so that we don't skip any teeth. So I'm going to bring my engine hoist over here and hook a bungee onto it. obviously this is pretty overkill, but actually this is pretty smart. So if you're doing this in your car, you could just use the bungee onto your hood, but we're just in the middle of the garage here, so we don't have really anything to latch onto. All right, so I mean, I think this will hold it. We could always make it tighter too. I don't see any issues with that. So now we're gonna try to take the cams out. Okay. That's one. Okay, I'm definitely gonna make this tighter. And now the intake cam, easy enough. Okay, so I've got the intake cam held in place with these two 23 millimeters, and now I'm gonna try to crack this loose. I'm just gonna use the pipe. It's gonna be a lot easier. All right, not too bad. VTC gear goes onto my new intake cam. And now this gets torqued to 83 foot-pounds. Okay. And we gotta do the same thing for the exhaust side. We also have to do the triggers for the back. Let me just do the trigger plate because my torque wrench is already set for this. So that's 30 foot-pounds. And finally, this one is 51. All right. So the new cams are all set. So now that we got the cams all prepped, it's time to work on the valve train. Got to take off these lower can holders, whatever they're called, and pop this whole assembly out so we have access to the springs. Tricky part is that all of these sections here are on springs and they want to kind of jump out. I know some people have put some zip ties in, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now we got this whole train. So with that taken care of, it's time to use this spring compressing tool, which I got on Amazon. So this is pretty simple. It bolts onto the head here, and this little cup piece goes onto the spring, and you tighten down this bolt, and it pushes the spring down so you can access the keepers. So I have cylinder 1 set all the way at the top, but I'm just going to back it off a little bit, and I'm going to try to add some rope into the cylinder to hold the valve up. So the proper way to do this would really be to use compressed air and put it into the spark plug hole, but I don't have compressed air. I wasn't about to buy it just for this, so we're going to go with this rope trick, which is slightly sketchy, but also not really. Probably could do this without the rope and just have the cylinder set up high. All right, we got plenty of rope stuffed in there, and when I went to lift the crank back up, I could feel the pressure, so I believe it's doing its job. So now we're just going to compress this just enough to release the spring. Okay, so hopefully that's down enough and I can remove the keeper with this magnet. So that's one. That's both keepers removed, and now the spring is ready to come out and be swapped. And now we gotta remove the valve seal. This valve seal removal tool. All right, easy enough. Okay, so I can use this valve seal tool to pull out the spring base. Wow, that's super easy. Part of the spring package is replacing the spring bases with these heavy duty ones. So just drop these in. Now we'll just add our new valve seals, which I think people say you just tap on with a 10 millimeter. Put the new springs in. The other part of the new spring set is a titanium retainer. So this obviously goes on here. And the trick is to preload the keepers, which we pulled out with the magnets. And you put them in here, lay it on top, and then use the tool to press it all together. So I've preloaded it with the keepers. I'm just gonna rest it on here. So I don't know about this preloading trick. Might just have to kind of tap them in. Okay, so this is definitely tricky. This is pretty tricky. This is tough. Oh, there goes both of them. Yeah, this is tricky. I don't know. That's just not right. I got like half on. I just want to see if it like seats itself. Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not right. Oh, wait. It worked. It's on. Amazing. I don't know how, but it's on. Now we just gotta repeat it 15 times. Hey, okay. There we go. That's on. The trick is to just get it kind of close and then just let the spring do the work. Well, I was up to the last spring and then we ran into a couple problems. So what had happened was I put the tool on, the clamp, and I was clamping down the last spring, and I guess it wasn't tightened up all the way. So the whole piece came loose and everything went flying. And I looked around my garage for like 2 days and I couldn't find one of the keepers. I found one keeper on the floor. I found spring retainer, and I knew there was a chance it was in the motor. I had gotten some magnet tools to fish around and all that. I drained the oil and I went through the oil pan, the opening on the side, to try to find the keeper. And the whole time I was thinking, it's like, oh, there's no way it's in there. Must be somewhere in the garage. And I really wanted to find it just because you can't buy an individual keeper. They only sell it as a set, and it's like $70 plus shipping and all that. So I really wanted to find it. I put the magnet through the oil pan. I was fishing around. And then when I wanted to come back out, the magnet was stuck because the oil pan has these like trapdoor baffles to keep the oil in the sub. The magnet was stuck. So now I really had a problem. So I had to lift the motor up and drop the oil pan, get the magnet out, and sure enough, the keeper was in the pan. Now I'm back to where I was. All the keepers and springs, all that's finished, and now I have to reseal the pan and get that back on, and then we can proceed with putting the cams in. Now this is just a quick tip if you're doing an oil pan or any type of gasket like that. Get some bolts that match what you're installing, cut the heads off, and use these as studs for locating the gasket so you don't smear all the sealant everywhere, and then you can just pull these back out and then replace them with the proper bolts. Alright, hopefully you can see what I'm doing, because I can't. Just gonna try to get this pan in using my homemade locating studs. Sink 2 bolts in quick, one on each side to hold it up there. Oh, the pan might just, yeah. You'll have to just take my word for it, that's going really well. Now it's time to get back to the cam project. So I'm just gonna bring over the whole rocker assembly here. Kept all together with my zip ties, nice and tidy. Now I'm gonna add the cams. First add some assembly lube. Oops, there's the cap, just dropped in, nice. Okay, take two. Add the assembly lube. So here is our intake cam, and I obviously lost the tension on the chain after the whole incident lifting the motor. We'll have to figure this out in a second. And I'm gonna put it roughly in time, and I have my mark on the chain, but it's irrelevant now that I dropped the chain. The chain itself isn't crucial to timing. Obviously it connects the components, but it doesn't actually determine what the timing is. So the only thing by dropping the tension is that my markings are relevant.
Turned out I couldn't get this exhaust cam mounted because the chain had actually fallen down and gotten caught on something. So I had to take off the timing case.
Okay, all the bolts are out, including the oil pan ones. Now we just have to pry this open. Now we can set the timing. Okay, well, it kind of sucks that it came to this point, but also kind of cool. You get to see all the inner workings. Down here, this arrow is a timing mark, and there's a corresponding mark there. This is the crank trigger plate here, which is what your crankshaft sensor sees, these little tags. The sensor goes like right through here. I'm gonna try to turn it with this. Ow. Okay, so that's almost right. This is tough to get that on. Right there. So now it should be pretty trivial to add the timing chain because there's nothing at all holding us back. So I'm gonna get this close as I can to the top. Try to get my two gold links at the top just for the sake of lining things up. There you go. So now I'm gonna add the cam caps just to hold these down. It'll be a lot easier. Okay, so I had tried to install cam caps, but I realized that the rocker shaft on the intake side was clogged incorrectly, so the bolts couldn't go through. So I had to take it apart and twist it. Now we can finally put these on. Okay, so now I'm gonna hand tighten these in the proper torque sequence, and then we'll torque it in the proper torque sequence. With the cams finally all installed, it's time to set the valve lash. The exhaust side is 10 thousandths, intake side is 8 thousandths. I just backed it off the slightest bit. Now I just gotta repeat it for every single valve. And with that, it's all complete. Not gonna lie, this project really kicked my ass. It was going so well until valve number 16 and just all hell broke loose, that piece flying out and looking around for it, finding the oil pan. It just made a simple project like twice as long. I really added probably 8 hours of work just to get the oil pan off, get the keeper, seal it back up, and then the timing chain fell down. Could have been avoided probably, but ended up having to take so much off that I didn't have to initially and just added so much scope. I'm glad it's done. I'm not gonna say it was fun, but I did learn a lot. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching.